219! 219!
Forward Progress, a Chicago Bears podcast with Dan Bernstein and Matt Abaticola on 312 Sports.
We give you Forward Progress on 312 Sports, brought to you today on this Friday, as we always are, by Church Brewing, New Buffalo's brewery-pizzeria in a historic church. Wood-fired Neapolitan pizza, small batch craft beer, brunch every day. Visit beerchurchbrewing.com. And here to go behind the scenes with the Bears' upcoming opponent, the Baltimore Ravens, is our guest. He is Brian Wacker. You can follow his work on socials at Brian Wacker 1. He is the main beat writer and reporter for the Baltimore Sun, covering the Baltimore Ravens, and we're happy to have him here on Forward Progress. How are you, Brian?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, thanks for taking the time for us this morning, Brian. And I know you just came off viewing the practice field for the Baltimore Ravens. What's the latest that you can share with us about where the Ravens are at going into this weekend's game?
Well, they look to be largely healthy. Two big question marks, though, of course. Lamar Jackson, he was out there for a third straight day on the practice field. He was limited the past 2 days, so it'll be interesting to see when the injury report comes out what his status is today. Was he a full participant? Was he limited again? I think if he's, either way, you would think this gives him maybe the chance to play on Sunday against the Bears. I think it's also, guys, worth remembering that 4 days later, they turn around and play the Miami Dolphins down in Miami. So, there's they've got to weigh that, right? Like, is he ready to play? Is Lamar Jackson ready to play? And you have to consider the fact that they have another game 4 days later. So, on the flip side of that, Ronnie Stanley, left tackle, was interestingly not out there today. He's been dealing with an ankle issue. He was a full participant in practice on Thursday, though, so we'll have to see what sort of the situation is there. But he's been dealing with an ankle issue, really going back before the bye week. So you would think he would be able to play on Sunday, and I would probably expect him to at least try to give it a go on Sunday, but we'll have a better sense of that, I think, later on today.
Looking at the remainder of this season, obviously the math now is daunting. And the possibilities, the percentages of making the playoffs or threatening further than that after 1-5 are certainly not good. How is the organization on all levels dealing with that? How much is there a reckoning with that idea and an understanding that maybe there's opportunity in that and a chance to start perhaps looking at some younger players or developmental players on the roster? And how much of it is just, look, head down, it's a weird league, there's a ton of parity this year, keep grinding, you never know what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think certainly it's the latter. I think that's the viewpoint within the organization. And, part of the reason that they're in this position, you mentioned kind of getting a look at younger players. They had so many injuries the first month of the season that they actually, some of those younger guys were pressed into duty probably sooner than they were expected to be. So I think the focus right now, look, you've got to play, as Derrick Henry said yesterday, you've got to play every game like it's your last. And I think that's how the Ravens are sort of treating this, is that, look, we're in playoff mode, 1 week, playoff mode every week. As you mentioned, the margins are slim. They just don't have a lot of room for error here. The margin is very thin. Only one team since 1970 has ever made the playoffs after starting 1-6. That was 1970 Bengals. Of course, back then there were only 26 teams. And they finished, I believe, 8-6, 14-game season. So a little bit different now. 10 wins probably gets, I would think, is probably the target. I don't know that they're necessarily looking at it that way. I think they kind of have that in the back of their mind. But you certainly want to start now with coming off a bye week as a team. John Harbaugh, 13-3 in his career, off of bye weeks. So that bodes well. But, of course, a lot of that will depend on Lamar Jackson. They do get a number of other players back, pretty much healthy. Obviously we'll see about Ronnie Stanley, but everyone else seems to be pretty healthy. They do get Pat Ricard back, the fullback. I think that makes a difference in their running game and some of the things they like to do with blocking, even in the passing game. So it's desperate times, but I don't think they're quite treating it as desperate, just in the sense of trying to win, one game at a time.
I know with every NFL team, overcoming injury is really what marks a good team or a playoff team, a championship caliber team. Is this 1-5 start just a byproduct of all the injuries, or has there been more going on with this team outside of the injuries as well?
Well, certainly the injuries play a huge part, right? You take Lamar Jackson off the field, you take really any starting quarterback of that caliber off the field, and it's going to present some problems, some challenges. And, Cooper Rush, I think we've seen, certainly he had some success in Dallas, but this is a different system, really tailored to Lamar's unique skill set. So just always sort of felt like a square peg in a round hole, and it sort of played out that way. Then you add in some other things, as we reported on kind of earlier in the week. There's been some disconnect from players on offense where they feel like some guys feel like they're maybe not being as creative as they could be, doing a lot of the same things they were a few years ago, and teams now have tape on that. Then there's guys maybe potentially being a little disgruntled at their role or lack of role.
Who?
And then you look at well, I just think, right, you take any team, when you look at this, and if guys aren't getting the ball in a losing situation, they're not going to be happy, right? Like we see this all the time across the NFL, certainly not unique to here. And then you look at the defensive side, as I said, the injuries played a lot. You got a second-year coordinator in Zach Orr, who I think is still kind of finding his footing a little bit in that regard. John Harbaugh's been a staunch supporter of his really since day one. But again, we have to remember this is a guy who is only in his second year calling defenses at any level. So there was growing pains last year. I think there's still been some growing pains this year. And then you just look at some of the guys just not, being out there. Roquan Smith, then you're suddenly forced to have a fourth-round rookie in Teddy Buchanan playing inside linebacker and calling the defensive plays with the green dots. So I just think it's been this kind of perfect storm of all of these things, whether it's been trying to find your identity on offense, trying to find, feed all of these star-studded hands on offense, and then defense, trying to find a scheme there. They, of course, lost guys like Nnamdi Madubuike, I think was a big blow on the defensive line. He's out for the year with a neck injury. And, all of these things have a trickle-down effect. And so I think it's just been, like any sort of big complex issue, it's usually a number of things, and I think that's the case here.
How much capital has John Harbaugh used up at this point? I mean, we know John Harbaugh, by any estimation, is a good coach. He has proven enough that he didn't become dumb overnight, and everybody knows that. I know he's generally well liked, but how much has he had to kind of rely on some of that goodwill and trust that he's accrued over these years to this point of getting through this bump in the road?
Yeah, look, no question. When you're an 18th year head coach, you're going to get some leeway, and as he should. And to your point, he's got a very impressive resume. He's won a Super Bowl. Consistently, this team is year in and year out, and even going back to last year when they had some similar struggles early in the year, managed to turn things around, win the AFC North, win a playoff game, and we're kind of right there, on the doorstep of the AFC title game again. So, look, I think probably the biggest question or the most asked question I get is John Harbaugh's job in jeopardy either now or at the end of the season? And I don't think it is, honestly. I certainly not during the season. I mean, you just don't do that. Like, what's the solution if you do that? And I always go back to that. Like, okay, if you're going to get rid of John Harbaugh, like, what's your solution? Because you're just blowing the whole thing up. You're getting rid of your coordinators. You're kind of restarting again with a quarterback Lamar, who's very unique, and in his ninth, will be going into his ninth year next year. So what's the solution now? Like, who's the replacement? So that said, look, if it were to go sideways down the stretch here, the second half of the season, certainly I think the seat would be warm. I still don't think, given his track record and given some of the injuries, that they've really incurred over the course of the year, I think that would buy him some time. You might see some other coaching changes, but I don't feel like his job is certainly not imminently in danger, and probably not even at the end of the season. And he's proven that he can turn these things around. So if he does that again, I think that bodes well.
I just want the record to show I did not ask that question.
You did not.
I didn't specifically, but you very deftly turned it to the fact that you do get that question a lot.
All the time.
I just want to clear that I asked around it, but I didn't ask it.
Yes.
Yeah,
and look,
go ahead. Sorry.
no,
Go ahead,
I just think, as I said, I mean, this is a guy who I always start with, okay, if you're in any scenario, you're getting rid of a coach, who are you replacing with? Particularly with an organization that feels like it is built to win now, and has this window with Lamar, with Derrick Henry, with some of the other pieces, Kyle Hamilton, etc. Now, maybe some of this roster was overrated, overvalued. You can certainly make that argument in some spots. For example, we've seen a guy like Jair Alexander not really factor since they brought him here. Obviously, he's had some injury issues and has that history behind him, so did not play well in that Buffalo game, was not really healthy in that Buffalo game. He's kind of been battling the same stuff that he's battled the last few years. So, so I do think there's pressure, certainly, but I just don't see that as the likely outcome.
Now, while I do think there are appropriate times to fire a head coach, even without a foreseeable solution, and particularly here in Chicago, I've experienced that. This certainly is not one of those cases with John
Right.
Harbaugh. But taking a look at the Ravens' schedule, you mentioned they play 4 days later after the Bears game in Miami. What do you expect to see from Lamar Jackson and his ability coming off that injury and time off the field in this game Sunday with the Bears?
Yeah, look, if Lamar plays Sunday, I think it's because he feels like he can give it a go, and he's not going to go out there if he doesn't feel healthy, certainly. I would certainly expect him to be out there by the Miami game as long as there aren't any setbacks. I'm probably leaning, again, we'll see what the injury report says later today. We'll see what John Harbaugh has to say, but I would sort of lean, having seen him out here for like 3 straight days, even though he's been limited the past 2, I kind of tend to lean toward him playing slightly on Sunday. That said, I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't play Sunday. I just think it's odd optics maybe if you've got a guy limited for 3 straight days practicing and then all of a sudden, is not playing. So that said, when he's on the field, I think that dramatically improves this offense because Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson.
You mentioned a lack of imagination, perhaps, in some of the play calling and or play design. I'd like to know more about what the internal grumbling may be about changing things up, and in large part because, and I've got a follow-up on that regarding Todd Monken, but when you start talking about maybe some of their looks have become a little stale, which ones?
Well, first, to be fair, like that's what some of the players are saying. Some of the guys have told us, and they feel like one player, for example, in the story, and I'm paraphrasing a bit from the quote, but essentially said, look, 3 years ago, Todd Monken's first year as the offensive coordinator here, teams did not have tape on this team in terms of what they like, what they don't like, et cetera, and what their tendencies are. If you fast forward 3 years, the gist of it is that, they're doing a lot of the same stuff, certain play calls, and we've seen it with certain run plays and so forth where, there's plays that they like. And look, that's true of any team. Any team's going to have certain plays that work well for them most of the time and they like to keep, and they don't necessarily maybe change that. But I asked Todd Monken about that yesterday in terms of looking at breaking some of those tendencies. And he said, look, it's something you look at all the time, certainly during the bye week and every week. And I think the other half of it that's interesting is, he's talked about having all of these weapons at his disposal, all these players, whether it's Shad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson. That's a lot of hands to feed, obviously, a lot of high-end talent that is produced on the field. And so it's a very delicate balance, I think, to try to manage that, to make sure guys are getting the ball that, can impact the game. Now, if you're a coach, obviously you don't really care. You just want to score, and it doesn't really matter how you get there. And I think if this team was 5-1 versus 1-5, and guys weren't getting certain catches or whatever, weren't getting the ball, there wouldn't be that grumbling, right? Because winning cures all. So we saw it a couple of years ago. It sort of reminded me of 2023. They had the best record in the NFL, and they had a lot of big personalities on that team, guys like Jadeveon Clowney and who had a great year, but also guys were just kind of happy that they were winning. right? That cures a lot of those things. But when you're the inverse of that, guys sort of start to wonder, and they, we had one player, sort of a well-respected veteran, say, it sort of creates a little bit of confusion maybe with some of the personnel packages and in terms of maybe what we're trying to accomplish or what we're hoping to accomplish. And, so I think there is this little bit of, it's Todd Monken says it's a good problem to have all of those players at his disposal. And sometimes, maybe it's just a problem. I don't know that I think it's probably somewhere in between, but clearly you've got to, that's a lot to manage.
Can I ask you about Monken? Because in Chicago, we had some fun with him. He was, I don't know if he was ever like officially a finalist, but I know he was on a short list to be a potential next Bears head coach. And I kind of found him adorable. I like the whole thing, and there is a very straightforward aspect. I know he's from here. I think he's originally from Wheaton. There's the whole Monken coaching family there. But between the play card sticking out of his pants and his propensity for some foul language, there's something definitely endearing about the character of Todd Monken. Is he really that? I mean, is he as much fun as he seems, or is it just kind of a like once you get past that rough edge? I mean, I know there's a lot of football knowledge in there somewhere, but he's like the kind of old-fashioned character you don't see a lot anymore.
Absolutely. Look, I'm sure he's not having a lot of fun being 1-5. That said, yes, he's got personality. He's got character. He can be endearing. I think he, as you mentioned, he comes from a coaching family. It's in his blood since he's 5 years old, going to his dad's, high school practices. So this is his wheelhouse, and he does have this sort of endearing personality about him, an endearing way, certainly that he deals with us, and I think even the players, and I think a lot of the players, they like him and a lot of what he's done. I think, again, anytime you're losing, guys are going to start to maybe look at things and, hey, maybe I should get the ball more or so forth. And so I don't know that it's a total indictment of him per se. Certainly some of the creativity stuff I found interesting. But again, some of that can be pegged to losing. Some of that can be, the plays just aren't working as well as they did in the past. But he is, from a coach standpoint, a personality standpoint, I mean, yes, he is that character, and he's entertaining, he's insightful, he's informative, he's fun to deal with. Will he ever get a head coaching job? I don't know. We've seen the kind of skews younger these days. I think the average age is, 46, 47, somewhere in that range. He's certainly well past that. So, but I think he does bring a lot to the table.
Now, Brian, do you have any firsthand knowledge of what happened to John Harbaugh's pinball machine? Because I know there's a lot of controversy about where that is, and I'm curious to know, how much do you like pinball, Brian?
I love a good pinball machine. And to be clear, the pinball machine was not one of the items in the locker room this year. That was from, I think, maybe 2 years ago, or maybe even last year. And, and look, to me, that whole thing has sort of mushroomed into this life of its own, where you had players saying one thing, and then John comes out, obviously says, look, it was some of the, it wasn't the coaches who took that out of there, it was veteran players. I think Kyle Hamilton said it best. Doesn't really matter. These guys wanted to get that out of there to kind of eliminate distractions. It's sort of like if you're a kid and you get in trouble, or you're not doing what you're supposed to. Your parents ground you. They take the video game system away. And that's, I kind of look at it that way. And it happened a month ago. And I think, it's just a matter of, hey guys, we need to focus. And to me, that was, I don't think it's a big deal, because I think this has happened plenty of places.
I'm sure it's not a big deal, but with every next recreational machine that got named, I kept laughing, because it was like, well, they took out the Pop-A-Shot and the ping pong table, and now air hockey is gone, and the pinball machine. I'm just picturing, it's like, the animatronic animals that do the hourly pizza party musical show. They removed all those too, that we've just got like a locker room Chuck E. Cheese. And look, they're professional athletes. It's not like they can't go home and play with their kids and do that. I find the whole thing performative.
Well, and look, to be honest, like, it's not like guys are in there all day long every day playing video games or
Right.
shooting hoops. I mean, basketball hoop like never got any.
And
run,
so
right? Like,
what if they are? So
Right.
what if they're like every
Yes.
people? Can you imagine like so
Yes.
instead they'd rather be like Dan Hampton and Steve McMichael, who would immediately go to a biker bar and start fights and break glasses over people's heads? That's better.
Totally agree. To me, this is not a big deal. Like, I mean, and frankly, the story we had it in, I mean, it was near the bottom of a 2,300 word story that, just one of those little elements of a little detail that we noticed, and it is what it is. It's, I don't think, I think a lot of people are making it a bigger deal than it really is, to your point. And even Kyle Hamilton, one of the most respected voices, I think, probably in the league, certainly in this locker room, said, "Look, it doesn't even matter. That's not impacting whether we're winning games or not."
Yeah, I think overall, Brian, it's a funny story, and it's not really anything to be concerned about. But one thing I would put it in, and having covered sports media in Chicago or the sports in Chicago for over 20 years, when you have those kind of situations making news and being talked about, and Derrick Henry talking about you got to play this game like it's your very last game, those kind of things get put into a bucket of that this might be a season that let's just get to the end of it and put this one behind us. That's kind of like the feeling I'm getting. Is that what the Baltimore Raven fans are feeling about this season right now?
Oh, certainly the Ravens fans, the fan base has a much different view than the people in the building, right? As they should. I mean, the people in the building, if you're having this mindset of like, hey, this season is, just not there. I mean, what are you doing here, right? So, certainly, I think until you're eliminated, then you're not even, that thought process doesn't enter your mind as a player or coach, I would imagine. Fans they're very. I mean, we've seen empty seats in the stadium that we haven't seen before. There's a big disgruntled fan base. Now, again, this was a team that was expected to go to, if not win, a Super Bowl this year. So that's what happens. It's week 8, 6 games into the season for them. So there is time for them to turn it around. But really, the margins of error, they're just gone. I mean, they can't lose more than 1 or 2 games.
We haven't talked about Derrick Henry yet, and even though his numbers are a bit down, which is probably understandable considering he's facing stacked boxes with the lack of a passing threat, and that's really the way I've been looking at this game, is can you have another man in the box or not? And I know we don't want to boil down to football to something that simple, but against Derrick Henry, it can be, because they're just counting up the number of bodies that they can have keeping a close watch on him. And as well as he has extended his career and held off the ultimate and inexorable erosion of age, guy's still hitting 21 miles an hour on next-gen stats. You can't argue with the data that at least the top speed is still there for him at this age. What are you, just the eye test from you, you've watched him a long time, how do you see him performing with all of these other factors weighing on him?
Well, and I think you made a good point about the threat of the passing game not being there, so defenses could key on him, but also the running game, because remember, Lamar Jackson being back there with the RPO stuff they do with Derrick Henry, that changes the equation for defenses significantly. You just can't do that stuff with Cooper Rush. Nobody's afraid of Cooper Rush breaking out for a 75-yard run. So that said, look, it was a little surprising to see Derrick Henry struggle the way he did, particularly with the fumbles. That stood out to me. Maybe the biggest thing was 3 straight games of the fumble earlier this year. So, but I think you have to look at that offensive line. That's come under a lot of scrutiny this year. I think Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum, the center, generally have played pretty well. I think Linderbaum's run blocking in particular has been very good. Some of the other guys, particularly the 2 guard spots, it's been not very good this year, frankly. They've just been down. And then the right tackle, Roger Rosengarten, inconsistent, but, up and down. So to me, I think it's a combination of you lose a guy like Lamar for a few games, and all of a sudden, people don't have to worry about another threat in that backfield. You've got Derrick Henry back there. Now, I will say they get Pat Ricard back. I think that, he doesn't play a lot, doesn't play a ton of snaps, but he plays enough snaps, and I don't think his importance can be overstated. I think, he's a guy that gives you a de facto extra offensive lineman, be it in the run game or the pass game, and a guy that can actually, get out in the flat and catch the ball too. So Pancake Pat, as his nickname is around here. So I think, to me, that's what stood out.
What is the perception in the building there about this upcoming game and about the Bears in general? Like, what are the Ravens saying about the Bears? What have you seen in the Chicago Bears over their first 6 games?
I mean, this Bears team is, you guys know this better than me. This is a team that's on a roll right now, 4 in a row. Offensively, kind of has some things going. Certainly can run the ball. And I think that's one of the key things to watch this Sunday is, this is a run defense that's been gashed a little bit here in Baltimore, and it's a Bears team that can run the ball, right? So, particularly on the tackle. So, to me, that stands out. I think, again, this team looks at this as must win. I think they take the Bears, as a very strong opponent. It's kind of how they look at it. I think they look at most guys like that, most teams like that. But certainly, I think Lamar Jackson is that's kind of at the nexus of all of this.
Last thing I have for you, Brian, is what's going on at tight end right now. I keep seeing, and this is something that has become relatively new to NFL talk, and that is a pre-trade deadline assessment of each team, almost in a baseball or basketball way that we hadn't seen in football. That's now the endless speculation of who's on the outs and who could be flipped for what. I do think it's fairly reasonable for speculation from the Ravens' perspective because of where the season is. And if you say, look, we may be better off marshaling our resources in a way that's going to get us some draft picks. And one of the names that keeps coming up is at tight end, where Isaiah Likely appears to be the future at that position. He and Mark Andrews are listed as co-starters. Andrews, similarly, you talk about Rosengarten, Andrews also has been sort of boom or bust this year. What's happening at tight end? How much of it has to do with Todd Monken and play calling? How much is tied in to who's quarterbacking the team? And what large decisions may loom at that spot?
Yeah, I'll start with the last point. I mean, certainly I think they've got a decision to make. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. I agree with you. I think all signs kind of indicate that Isaiah Likely is going to be their guy. I don't think there's been really any talks at all of contract extension for Mark Andrews here. So I think they look at it as, I know there was some interest potentially in the offseason for trading for him. I'm not sure they got the offers that they would have liked there. He's also, I think it's worth remembering too, like coming into the season, he's one of Lamar Jackson's favorite targets. Always has been. They came in together in 2018. There's this chemistry between them, and you certainly didn't want to upset the apple cart by trading him before the season. And so now I think, depending how things go, you maybe look at that and say, okay, what can we get for him? Of course, if he goes and signs a free agent contract in the offseason, you're going to get a comp pick probably pretty similar to what you get in trade value there as well. So I think it's, Eric DeCosta likes to play things close to his vest, keep things quiet, but I think they will see how these next couple of games go. If they win these next 2, I think they're going to be more buyers than sellers. If they lose the next 2, they may look to make a move here or there on some guys. They already made one move, Odafe Owe, going to the Chargers for Alohi Gilman, the safety. Made another move just this week, signing free agent linebacker Carl Lawson, bringing him back to kind of aid that beleaguered pass rush. So to me, I think they view it as trying to maybe acquire another defensive tackle or maybe another linebacker, to plug in there on the outside if they can. They've got some guys they can move. Certainly, Andrews, Rashad Bateman's got a very a very talented receiver. He's got a friendly contract, but I don't think they're probably going to move him this year unless things really go sideways. And really beyond that, there's not a lot. Maybe you could move Van Noy. I don't see the point in doing that though, because then taking away from a pass rusher that you need pass rushers. So. But I do think it'll depend how these games go in terms of whether they'll be buyers or sellers. I can say that they're not. Eric DeCosta likes draft picks, so he does not. I do not expect him to make some huge splashy deal with a first-round draft pick. It just doesn't happen here.
All right, Brian, we do appreciate your time, all the information you shared. I know you got a busy day getting ready for this upcoming game, so thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
That's Brian Wacker of
Thank
the
you.
Baltimore Sun, who has been covering the Baltimore Ravens. Interesting times there, man. God, when he said Harbaugh, what did he say, 18 years? Is that?
Yeah, 18, I couldn't believe it was 18 years already.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a long-ass time. That is officially a long-ass time.
Yeah, so he's currently second in the league, right behind Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
Tomlin's longer than 18, right?
And you know what? I have to apologize. You know what I realized? Something's making me crazy.
What's that?
My shark jaws fell down behind me.
Oh, no. Well, you better fix it.
I know. It's just, I don't know what's going on. Hold on a second here. and I keep looking at it, and it's bothering me.
All right, well, fix it.
So
fix
they
it.
slipped.
Yeah, if you want to get more inside information on the Ravens, follow along. You can get Brian Wacker on Twitter at Brian Wacker1, W-A-C-K-E-R, at Brian Wacker1. He'll have updated information as we go through the weekend. And just taking a quick look at the injury report. Yesterday, Roshan Johnson, Braxton Jones, Cole Kmet, Tyreek Stevenson, Joe Tooney all did not practice. Tooney was it's just rest. I don't there's not anything there for Tooney. Edmonds and Kyler Gordon, DJ Moore, and DeAndre Swift were all limited, and you had full practice from Austin Booker, Grady Jarrett, Dan's guy, the linebacker, Cairo Santos, and Deshaun Wright, all full practice.
Amen Ogbongbemiga.
Yes, that guy.
He doesn't have to be my guy. We're gonna make you a believer.
No,
We're
I
gonna
know.
make you-
I do. Again, it's out of respect for that young man and all he's doing on the football field. I don't want to butcher his name.
You won't. Come on.
Come on.
Come on, guy.
Come on, guy.
Come on, guy. Relax, guy. Come
So,
on, guy.
and then, looking at DJ Moore limited. Remember, yesterday did not practice at all with that hip injury. Limited in practice, or 2 days ago he did not practice. Yesterday, limited in practice. So, curious to see how that injury plays out with his hip groin thing happening.
Yeah, you know that for Lamar Jackson, regardless, that they're going to say questionable, but they're going to know, and they're going to list him as questionable.
Well, I think they already know what he's.
Of course, they know.
Yeah.
Of course, they do.
What do you think? I mean, so Brian gives it a slight possibility, more leaning that he does start.
Yes.
You do?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he starts. Why would they need? They're desperate, man. They need every possible win. They know that they're very unlikely to beat the Bears unless he plays.
Yeah, I guess, and I guess depending on how injured he still is and how healthy he really is, I should say, to get back on the field. Having that 4-day turnaround and taking on a Dolphins team might look more appealing than first game back against a team, and the Bears have won 4 in a row, are starting to impact the backfield a little bit on the defensive side of the football, and get some takeaways. So I don't know. It might be a very interesting conversation to have about what you do with him, looking at their next 2 opponents.
I also have not looked at the weather for the game, and usually I'm pretty good about doing that. I did see that, at least on my bookie, that betting pressure has reduced the line from 6.5 down to 6. And the other thing that I was looking at, as we maybe can expand to a little NFL stuff here, for my DBU pick on DBU,
Yeah,
I chickened out. Can I just admit that I chickened out of a pick?
sure.
I was going to take the Jets, not only to cover, but to win outright.
Who the Jets got?
Bengals.
Oh, yeah, no shot.
I know, but it's something. They're gonna. There's gonna be a weird game in here, and sometimes there's just an inexplicable weird game, and it just, when I first saw it, I have to say that my first gut was the Jets are going to win that game. Just because they're not going to go over. It's too hard in this league to go over now. And sometimes when it's always darkest before the dawn. And it was just, it's illogical. And I know you enjoy the fact that usually all my stuff is, when I do have a feeling or a thought, I try to base it in reason. And this is not. But I just looked at that. I'm like, they're going to win that damn game. So Don't
I
hold me to
understand.
it.
I'm going to give you where the Jets are going to get their first win, because it
Okay.
is not going to be this weekend against the Bengals.
Okay.
November 9th, they host Cleveland. They're going to lose that game. They lose to New England. They're going to lose to the Ravens. They're going to lose to the Falcons. December 7th, Dan, mark it down.
A day that will live in infamy.
Yes, as the New York Jets get their first win on the 2025 season over the Miami Dolphins.
All right. Will Mike McDaniel be the coach at that point?
I'm going to say yes. I don't know if they're going to fire him in season, to be honest with you. I think he's gone after the season, but if there was going to be a point to fire him, I would say giving the winless Jets their first victory might be the catalyst that is needed.
We also got some closure on something that we've been following here. This, according to Tom Pelissero of NFL Network. The NFL fined the Giants $200,000 for violating concussion protocol with Jackson Dart. Separately, the NFL fined Brian Daboll $100,000 and running back Cam Scadaboo $15,000 for conduct detrimental to the league.
Was that for going in the tent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for Daboll. How's he going to get him out of there? We need our quarterback, or whatever it was. And he knew he screwed up.
All right, so let's just take a real quick look at Week 8 here. Last night kicks off with a Chargers pretty easy win over the Vikings, 37-10. I don't even know if the Vikings had 30 or 40 yards rushing in that game. At one point, where was it, in the third quarter, going right at the start of the third quarter? I think the Vikings only had 3 yards rushing.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was the first half. We have the Falcons hosting the Dolphins. Of course, Ravens, Bears. Bills are at the Panthers. Could be a good game. The Jets at the Bengals, we just talked about. 49ers at the Texans. Browns at the Patriots. Giants at the Eagles. That'll be a game I think the Eagles are going to do some damage. Buccaneers at the Saints. Another win for Baker. Cowboys at the Broncos. The Titans at the Colts. And the Packers at the Steelers is the Sunday night game.
Sunday night.
And then Monday Night Football is the Commanders at the Chiefs.
With Marcus Mariota starting.
Yes. Yeah, and another Chiefs win to get them to 5-3.
And I guarantee you the Chiefs aren't complaining about, well, we would like to beat them at their best.
No, not at all.
I'm doing that.
Like, they're not giving thoughts and prayers for a speedy recovery.
No, another note here from the press conference, the Bears press conference, is our guy Ari at Wiener Circle, who has been a
what's
guest.
he doing now?
Well, what he's doing is apparently Wiener Circle is now saying they're going to give out free hot dogs again if Ben Johnson removes his shirt to celebrate a win.
Oh, okay. At any point in the season.
I don't know if has to do it on the field or it has to be in the locker room before he does the good, better, best. But his response was, it's a little disturbing. Why would we want to see that? And nobody answered. And I said, well, the question then came like, don't you want to give people the free hot dogs? And he said, I'm a man of the people, so time will tell. He's only a 37-year-old who's in terrific shape. It's not like Andy Reid taking off his shirt. What are we doing here?
No, the Kansas City area had I think if Andy Reid took his shirt off, he got free hot dogs. So he does it on a regular basis. They had to stop it. Because he kept showing up at their equivalent of Wiener Circle with his shirt off.
They run out of the tunnel for the game, and he's not wearing a shirt. They haven't even won yet. And he stood there waiting for the hot dogs.
The owner shows up at his hot dog stand, and Andy Reid's outside already with his shirt off.
Like Rick Camp was at Real Urban Barbecue?
Yeah, but he had his shirt on from what I remember.
It's still
Who
the greatest. It is probably... When Nick Shepkowski showed me that picture, when we were at Original Scorehouse, that I think to this day, that is the most scared I was that I was going to asphyxiate from laughing. I couldn't breathe. Now, granted, we had imbibed some things that Parkins may or may not have had with him. And at least one person passed out. Didn't pass out, but fell down face first on the pavement due to it. Oh, it was a great trip. But when we were passing around that picture of,
Was that in spring training, or what was that?
yeah, it was the first Scorehouse where we rented.
Okay.
But oh my God, like I couldn't get my breath. I thought I was gonna die, and then I was fine, and then it happened again. Just looking, because Rick Camp, he had to be first in line at Real Urban Barbecue for a year, and there was no one even around him. He was there at like 5 p.m. the day before, smiling, happy as a clam. One of the happiest people you'd ever see in your life. And just smiling, yeah, I'm here. Just give me mine. There's no doubt. I win.
I think he got there like 2 weeks before. Definitely shirtless.
Real Urban Barbecue technically hadn't even been incorporated yet.
They just laid the foundation.
Yeah, they were still finalizing.
One day there could be a barbecue place here that gives away barbecue for a year. Right. I'm going to find out.
It's just a hole in the ground, and he's already there. Yes,
Sir,
I don't
can we help you?
I'm waiting to see if Wiener Circle is going to come up with all sorts of clever ways to viral market and have their name mentioned for free, and here and in other places.
I think Ari should give away free hot dogs if Andy Reid has, during any post game, has a bit of food caught in his mustache.
A visible piece of food.
Visible piece of food.
Because he may store things there on purpose.
Correct.
There may be like a little chunk of like Carolina pulled pork or something that he's got. Well, it'll have to be Kansas City.
Or a whole smoked butt.
A smoked pork butt. Speaking of food, you see this?
I know exactly what that is. It's the Beer Church hymnal.
Yeah, that's what they call it. And my goodness, there is so much to go through. But you see right here about the pizza Napolitan.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, is there? Can you read something for me out of there? Just pick a food item. I'm really hungry and I want to make it worse. Can you just read something for me?
Oh, okay. I'm going to read you the Saint Erasmus of Campania, who should probably have been, this dish should probably have been in our top 10 saints of all time.
Okay.
The Saint Erasmus of Campania Colossal Shrimp Chalice. And this is because Beer Church is actually a church, a Civil War era church in New Buffalo, Michigan. What a great weekend to go to New Buffalo and just to drive the Red Arrow Highway there and like look at all the trees and the foliage. So this shrimp here, it says you'll recognize the familiar iced goblet, if you're into that whole thing, and the sinus-rattling, horseradish-laden cocktail sauce one expects is uplifted to even greater absurdity by our inclusion of Calabrian chilies to the recipe. True to the actual region of the good saint, Saint Erasmus of Campania, from Calabria, and that's why they include it.
So the cocktail sauce with a lot of horseradish and then Calabrian chilies.
And Calabrian chili.
Oh my God!
Yep.
Do you like the horseradish in the cocktail sauce?
I don't like an unreasonable amount. I have nothing to prove. I like the whole St. Elmo's thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like crazy hot. I don't need it hot for the sake of hot. I don't mind hot, but I want it. The goal should be for it all to taste great.
See, but it's a different kind of hot to me, and I can't get enough of it. I love it. I love that the tears coming from my eyes and just that the clearing of my entire skull. I love that.
Well, we grew up. Remember that horseradish is a critical and actually it's a symbolic condiment on Passover.
Oh,
where yes, the bitterness, the bitter herbs on the Seder plate. They symbolize the bitterness of servitude and slavery of the Jews at the hands of the pharaohs.
Okay.
And it's important that you must eat it as part of the Seder. There's a time where you eat it and a time when you pair it also with the apples and cinnamon mixture with the matzah. And there are all sorts of symbolic moments during the Seder. So even as a tiny child, and we would always have hot horseradish, always. So my experience, I get these Proustian memories, of course, with Real Hot Horseradish goes back to childhood, and all roads lead back to the Passover Seder. And when one does that, as a kid, I used to be scared. I don't want it. But then you develop your taste for it over time when you start getting excited. And there was always a rule at my house: you don't open the containers until it's time to eat, because you don't want it ever exposed to oxygen to lower the heat level. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I love it though. So Beer Church.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry,
Beer Church hymnal. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, you lost me for a second. You got me involved there. I don't know if they would do a Seder at the Beer Church, but yeah, I was in the middle of the read. It's awesome, and the pizzas are great. They teach you how to make pizzas at their pizza school. So when you have a big group that does maybe an annual party or semi-annual party, do it there. It's different and it's fun. Everybody gets excited for it. Oh, we're going to learn how to make pizza. Yeah, not only do you learn how to make it, hands-on with the dough and learning how to stretch it, and they have all the ingredients, and then you can try every pizza that's actually on the menu until you say stop bringing it, because they'll just keep bringing it for everybody there. And the drinks are fabulous. All their craft beers, wine, cocktails. You can pair everything with the small batch brews. They can tell you which of the beers works with which type of pizza if you want to do that. It's 2 hours. It's lunch or dinner. It's private. It's exclusive. Skip the same old night out and make your next gathering unforgettable. Book now at beerchurchbrewing.com in New Buffalo, Michigan. And if you just want to go hang out, watch games on their gorgeous heated patio with all of the games going on, there's never a bad time to do it. Our good friends at Beer Church Brewing, beerchurchbrewing.com.
Awesome. And that'll wrap up today's episode of Forward Progress. Again, our guest was Brian Wacker, the Baltimore Sun lead reporter for the Sun or for the Baltimore Ravens. Look forward to talking more about Bears and Ravens, and hopefully, Dan, a big Bears victory.
Well, regardless of the outcome, I'm going to be right here in this seat. I'm going to leave this camera, this microphone, this computer. I'm going to leave everything. The next time I flip it on, we are going to have a Bears outcome to discuss, and we're going to be live. And it has been fantastic. I look forward to it every week, whether the Bears win, whether they lose, no matter what. All of your thoughts immediately. It's a party at our house, and you're invited after every Bears game. So make it an appointment for you by subscribing. And when you subscribe and you set your alerts on YouTube with the Forward Progress YouTube page, and you will get an alert sent and say, hey, they're coming on, they're going on, so dial it in, and we've got all things post-game Bears literally right here.
Yeah, so make sure you subscribe to Forward Progress, DBU, and Organizations Win Championships for 312 Sports. Have a great rest of your Friday, and we'll talk to you soon.